Today I'll teach you how to perform server-side TextBox validation in ASP.NET Core. So let's start. So the very first thing, I'll open Solution Explorer, and from there I'll be opening the model class. So here I am adding a namespace, system.componentModel.data annotations. This particular namespace is required for data annotations. Now inside the class, I am adding a property name, which is a string property. As you can see, at present I am adding a data annotation required and I am setting the error message for it. This particular data annotation is used for performing required validations. It is very similar to required field validator. So with this, our model class is complete. Now let's move to the view. Now inside the view, I am inheriting the tag helper classes. The next thing I am doing is adding a form. The method attribute I am setting to post. Then I am setting the ASP controller attribute to home. And lastly, the ASP action attribute to index. Now inside the form, I am creating an HTML table, and within the HTML table, the very first thing which I am adding is a text box, and for text box I am making use of ASP4 attribute, and in the ASP4 attribute value I'll be setting the name property. ASP4 attribute is used to set a value for a particular field. So in this case, it will be fetching the value from the name field. The next thing I am adding is the HTML span element, which will be used to display the validation error message. The HTML span has been set with an ASP validation 4 attribute. This particular attribute will be used for displaying the validation message for the model property. Now here you will notice I am adding attribute named class. This is required for setting the CSS class. Now I am adding a submit button, and for that I am making use of input element, and I am setting the type as submit, which when clicked by the user will submit the form to the action result method. Now let's move to the controller. Inside the controller, now I am adding an action result method for handling post call. The reason is that I'll be submitting a form. So that form will be submitted to this particular method. I am naming it as index, and I am passing the person model class object as parameter. Inside the action method, the state of the submitted model is checked using model_state.isValid property. And if the model is valid, then the value of the name property is set in a ViewBag object. In the end, the view function is written which completes the action result method. Now let's move to the top of the action result method, where I'll be adding the HTTP post attribute. Now again, let's move back to the view. Firstly, I am checking whether the state of the model is valid or not. If the state of the model is valid, then the value of the ViewBag object will be displayed using razor syntax. So now here I'll be displaying a message from controller inside the view. For that purpose, I'll be making use of ViewBag object. ViewBag allows us to create a dynamic objects. That means we don't have to define the data type. Here I have pasted some CSS classes. This is required for styling the view as well as setting the color for the error message which will be displayed during validation. So with this, we are done with our view, and we can now run the project and see it in action. As you can see, the text box and the button has been rendered, and also the validation is working fine. Now I'll be adding my name in the text box, and I'll again submit to see whether it works or not. So as you can see, when we put value in the text box, it is working fine. So with this, we come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon. Goodbye.